All right, we can go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to welcome everyone here. My name is Drew Tucker. I'm Director of Jazz for South Arts. So we're going to have quite a bit of information for you. Some of it's going to be based around who we are, who the 6 regional arts organizations are, and the kind of work that we do, as well as some specifics on Jazz Road. At the end of this webinar, the goal is for you to feel like you are well equipped to put your best foot forward to give yourself the best chance to be able to apply with a competitive application for a Jazz Road tour or a Jazz Road creative residency. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, make sure that my screen is pinned here. So Jazz Road, it is a program of South Arts, and some key personnel. Susie Sturkemer is our president and CEO, and she's here with us. She's here with us today. Dr. Joy Young is the vice president of programs over all the wonderful programs that we have at South Arts. There's myself, Drew Tucker. I'm the director of jazz. And then someone else we're going to hear from who's so key, very important, behind the scenes, doing just amazing work to make sure that this application process is as smooth as possible, is Kathy Lee, who's a director of database and technology. And just for a few words, we're going to invite Dr. Joy Young, the vice president of programs, to say a few things.
Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to have you here with us today. We are excited about the work that is happening with Jazz Road tours and creative residencies. So as Drew shared earlier, Jazz Road is led by South Arts, and it happens in partnership with the 5 other U.S. regional arts organizations. And those organizations are Arts Midwest, Mid-America Arts Alliance, Mid-Atlantic Arts, New England Foundation for the Arts, and the Western States Arts Alliance, in cooperation with the Western States Arts Federation. Now, this program would not be possible without the incredible support by the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation, with additional support from the Mellon Foundation. South Arts is incredibly honored to be able to support the work of individual artists, but we also support work of arts organizations, work that goes into communities across our 9-state region, support of leaders. And with us doing this work, we truly believe we are honoring our mission of advancing Southern vitality through the arts. Again, let me say thank you very much for being here with us today, and I'm going to turn things back over to Drew. Have a great session. Drew?
Thank you so much, Joy. All right, so some of the things that Joy was talking about, we're going to kind of touch on as well. But there's a lot of wonderful programs that South Arts has to offer. So even as we go through this, we encourage you to continue to go to the South Arts website, look for all sorts of different grant openings, let your artist friends know, because there's all sorts of wonderful programs, not only through South Arts, but through the other regional arts organizations as well. All right, so Jazz Road. What is Jazz Road? It's an artist-centric touring and residency grants program that's administered by South Arts. And the purpose of it is to spread jazz throughout the country. It's to strengthening work opportunities and compensation for jazz artists, and bolstering deeper engagement between jazz musicians, presenters, and communities. This is really important, and it's something that, while it looks like it's just kind of a bunch of information, like, well, that's great. Of course, we're all trying to do that, but it's really important that you really key in on these points, because when you're making your application, you want to make sure that you're also thinking about the purpose of not only what you're trying to achieve as an artist, which is very important for the Jazz Road program, but also what the Jazz Road program as a whole is trying to, what the purpose of the Jazz Road program as a whole is as well, so that you can make sure that you're aligning the values of what you're trying to do with your tour or your residency with those values of Jazz Road as a whole. And so Jazz Road is made up of 2 parts. The first is Jazz Road Tours. The Jazz Road Tours offers grants up to $15,000 to develop tours into communities across the country. And then there's the Jazz Road Creative Residencies. The Jazz Road Creative Residencies are grants up to from $5,000 to $40,000 that are available to support a residency that you propose and develop for artistic creation or connecting with audiences. And as Joy brought it out, this is all made possible by the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation with additional support from the Mellon Foundation. So of course, we always encourage you to take a look at what some of those amazing organizations are doing so that you can keep abreast with all the things that are going on and all the organizations that are supporting the arts within our nation. So also, we are one of 5 regional arts organizations. And so what regional arts organizations are RAOs, as we like to call them. They're a national collective. We are a national collective of 6 place-based nonprofit arts and service organizations. We have a deep connection with our regions. That's going to be a key factor as well to the success of your application, is really understanding your region, connecting with your local regional arts organization to be able to formulate your tour if needed. Also, as well, we have longstanding partnerships with state art agencies, National Endowment for the Arts, National Endowment for the Humanities, and other public and private funders. We're intermediaries and service providers. And the goal of all of the regional arts organizations, all 6, is to increase access to the arts and creativity. And we want to work collaboratively within and outside our regions. And so all of these arts organizations, we're going to briefly go through them and what states they serve. All of these arts organizations have unique programs that are unique to the region, and also some also have national programs as well. So even if you're not in one of these regions, well, everyone will be in one of these regions, but you're not in a specific region, definitely go and check them out to see if they have any national programs as well that might be of interest to you or someone in your network. So we have Arts Midwest is the first one. They serve Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, North Dakota, Ohio, South Dakota, Wisconsin, South Dakota and Wisconsin, and the Native nations that share that geography. So they're at artsmidwest.org. The next is you have Mid-America Arts Alliance with what I do believe to be the best website name, which is ma.org. And they're in Arkansas. They serve Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas. And then we have Mid-Atlantic Arts, who serves Delaware, District of Columbia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, the US Virgin Islands, Virginia, and West Virginia. I'd like to also mention that my bullet point structures need work, but at least I've been consistent. I've connected 2 states with 1 bullet point at each one of these slides so far. So that's Mid-Atlantic Arts. And then we have the New England Foundation for the Arts, where they serve Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, and all of those of which comprise New England. And we have South Arts, which we've spoken about. And for us, it's Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. And again, Jazz Road, even though it's South Arts, we're the ones who administer this grant, it is a national grant. So no matter where you live within the United States, you are eligible to be awarded this grant. Should you win the award. And then Western States Arts Federation, which is the largest of all of the 6 regional arts organizations. And you can see they serve Alaska, American Samoa, Arizona, California, Colorado, Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Utah, Washington, and Wyoming. They also have a very cool website name as well, westaf.org. All right, so let's take a look at the timeline for Jazz Road tours and the Jazz Road Creative Residencies. The immediate one that we're looking at right now, the Jazz Road tour for this particular grant cycle has opened January 23rd. It closes on March 8th. So on March 8th at 11:59 Pacific Standard Time is when the last application would be able to be presented or submitted rather. And then those applicants, it then goes to a panel process. So I do not adjudicate the applications. As a grant administrator, my job is to just make sure that these guidelines are clear and that all of the applications are full and complete before submitting them to the panel. And then I submit them to the panel, they adjudicate between April and May. And then on May 15th, all of the grants, all the recipients will be notified of their award. Now, this particular grant cycle is for a touring window of June 1st to January 15th, 2024. So that would be when your touring window would have to be, your tour would have to take place sometime within that window. And then your Jazz Road Creative Residencies, that opens on February 8th, which is next week. That closes April 8th. And the residency window when your residency would have to take place is between July 1st, 2023 to June 31st, 2024. All right. So now if you just give me 1 second here, we can, I'm gonna, there we go. All right. All right, so we're going to walk through the website. So if you go to southarts.org, and if you go to these 3 little lines over here in the top right, and you go down to Artist Grants and Fellowships, you hit this arrow, you drag down, you'll see Jazz Road. If you want to get more specific and targeted, you hit the next arrow, next drop down will take you right to where you want to be. Or you can just go to jazzroad.org. So taking a look at the website, we have About Jazz Road, and then we have an overview. And one thing you might want to check out, and we'll be coming back to this a little bit later, but if you go down on this homepage of Jazz Road right here, and you go down, it says where jazz artists have toured. And so when you go through here and you see it, it'll allow you to take a look at some of the artists that have been funded, but it'll also give you a map of where these artists have toured. So you can see as you go through it, we have Svetlana, who's in Georgetown, South Carolina, and some other areas in North Carolina. We have the Philippe Lem Trio. And if you want to kind of zoom in, you can see that perhaps here, you can see all the areas. So this is definitely helpful in providing you with some ideas about tour routing, some places you might want to go. So it's definitely a great resource to kind of check out. And also, if we go down, we see what kind of projects Jazz Road is funded, and we can read about these artist projects. You can filter them out to search for them. And it's a pretty extensive database of the Jazz Road Creative Residency recipients. So you can take a look at what kind of projects they were. And that could no doubt help inform your application as well. So let's take a look at Jazz Road Tours. This is open now. Click on Jazz Road Tours, you see the overview, and everything is available if you just kind of continue to scroll. Obviously, we're in this informational webinar. And then we have the program description. So it supports small 3 to 6 site tours at an array of venue types, often in rural communities and other areas traditionally underserved by the genre. It is an artist-centric grant program, and it supports approximately 50 tours each year. And it's made possible from the Doris Duke Foundation with additional support from Mellon Foundation. It's $5,000 to $15,000. And here's some dates. We talked about this one. If you guys look right here, this is the one we're in right now. Right, so the applications have been open. So if you wanted to go apply, perhaps some of you were in the middle of that application process. And the next one will open April 17th. The deadline will be June 1st. Applicants will be notified August 15th. And this is for if you plan on touring between September 1st and March 15th. So there's a little bit of overlap between this one and next one. So perhaps you feel like you can't put some of the tour items together for this particular one. And you're somewhere in that overlap here of September to January. You could still, if you're in September to January, choose to wait until the next cycle to go ahead and apply. There's a video with that guy and another one with that guy. I need to check out that one. And here's where a lot of the crux of the information that's going to inform your application and the content of your application is located. And here in the program priorities. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier. It's really important that as a general rule of thumb, when you're applying for grants, whether it's Jazz Road or anything else, that you take a look at the program priorities and really take a look at what you're trying to gain from your application and what you're trying to gain from receiving this award. Obviously, it's great to get money to tour, But if it's simply just about, I just need a couple $1,000s to kind of get on the road and come back, and you haven't really thought deeply, we really encourage you to think deeper on it. Think about the program priorities of the grantor, and think about what your priorities and values are in taking this tour, and see where they align. No doubt they do align, but you want to make sure that you take some time to really think about it so that you can really do a good job of articulating it within your application. Providing jazz artists financial assistance for performances and tours that increase their ability to earn income by connecting with a diversity of communities in traditional and non-traditional venues. And that's an important one. Just to break that one down a little bit, this is about building the field and building the field through the individual artist. And we want to make sure that while we're doing that, and while you're doing that, that when you're looking at places to tour, how to go about building your tour, that you take a look at the idea of connecting with the diversity of communities. Now, that not only is something that we value with Jazz Road, but also something that is important that as an artist that you value as well, just to make sure that as you increase your footprint, that you're looking not only to the same venues to continue to keep tracking, but you're trying to grow that footprint throughout through diversity and really being as inclusive as possible and as wide ranging as possible. And of course, we encourage traditional and non-traditional venues. We're going to build on that a little bit more. And we also want to make sure that we're giving artists the business development tools to advance your careers beyond just subsidies and grants. So the goals are rooted in equitable pay and artist-centric programming as core values. We believe that the artist should receive fair pay for your time, work, and expertise, and that allowing artists, as opposed to the venues and agents, to control the engagement offers a unique level of creative autonomy and ownership. These goals are discussed below. So what that basically pares down to is that by going through this process, by asking yourself these questions, by engaging in the application process, even if you weren't to get the grant, what we've heard, the feedback we've gotten from the field, from a lot of people who have applied, is that just by doing that, they were able to build new relationships with venues they hadn't thought of before, because it gave them an entryway to approach venues they might not have approached because of the possibility of the grant. It also allowed them to deepen their understanding of what's really required to be able to tour. So by going through a budget, by going through and thinking about what the opportunity costs are, what money you're leaving on the table to go and make this money touring, what the real cost of all the time you put in rehearsing and preparing the music and being your music director and arranger and band leader, what those real costs are, what the real travel costs are. And being able to go through this exercise, even if it was to apply, even if you did not get the grant, even being able to do that still allows you, or the feedback that we got rather, still, many of these artists still mentioned a boost in their career and their understanding of it, and an excitement about the next phase of their career through this deeper understanding. Yeah, so the key components: an artist can apply for a 3 to 6 site tour. So these have to be contiguous dates, so they have to be connected. Obviously, there's travel days that are allowable, and there's also slow days where people might not be booking on a Monday. So there are, we allow up to about 2 to 3 days between that might be off within that tour. But for the most part, they have to be connected. And also, we want to see a good tour route. We believe that through a logical route of tour dates, artists can experience the continuity and momentum of repeat engagements. So if you have 2 nights, say at the Blue Note, that would still count as 1 site. So you'd still have to have a minimum of 3 sites and up to 6 sites, different sites. An offer letter for each site is required as part of the application. We do have offer letter templates. As long as you collect the information from that, you fill it out and you put that in, you submit that, that will count. We just want to make sure that you're getting the information that you need to have a successful show, successful engagement, and also that, that the show is actually happening. Jazz Road will prioritize applications that include engagements in rural areas or that reach typically underserved communities, especially those that lack opportunities to present live jazz. So when we say rural areas, that's defined as towns with under 50,000 people. That's 50, under 50,000 people. But also understanding that that's a challenge. That should be, we also prioritizing engagements where there's not a large jazz presence. So the Blue Note, Manhattan, the center of DC, Georgetown, places where jazz is prevalent, where there's lots of jazz clubs. These places are good. but those wouldn't be considered underserved by jazz, right? Because there's lots of places where people in the community can go and see jazz, they can experience it, and they can share it. So trying to look for places maybe that connect that. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't have those? No, it doesn't, because of course we go back to the first component, which is building artists' capacity, right? So obviously playing at a place maybe perhaps that you wouldn't be able to play without this grant, like a Blues Alley or a Blue Note or a Village Vanguard, something to that nature, is obviously going to help your career. But what about on the way there? Are there places that you can be creative about? Are there venues that you can be creative about? Are there outdoor venues? Are there house parties that you could or help organize? And we'll get a little bit more into that later, but we want to, what I like to say is you want to do some for you and some for the grant, right? So some to help the field, some for you, some for the field is what I should say. So hopefully by helping you, we're helping the field. And then when you're able to spread jazz and spread an appreciation of jazz to new communities, what you're essentially doing is perhaps giving an opportunity to someone who wouldn't be willing to take a risk on jazz, but because there's a grant that's available, if the grant becomes available, then they'll take a risk on it. And maybe at that point, they'll say, you know what, this was great. Our audience loved it. Let's continue to program it once a month. And that's how we continue to build the field in that way. Applicants that make a compelling case for how the tour will impact their careers in new ways are also more competitive. Eligibility. So please note that Jazz Road, previous Jazz Road Tours grantees are only able to reapply for tours that take place at least 1 year from the previous grant project's end date. So if you toured, not the last application you did, but the last tour you did. So if you toured in October of 2022, you wouldn't be able to apply for any grant that closed before October 2023. Okay, so eligible artists. It could be an individual artist, could be solo, could be artist-led nonprofit, artist-led corporation. So an eligible artist is a professional jazz artist who's working solo or in a band that's up to 10 musicians. You have to be 18 or over and not currently a full-time student, based in the US or its territories, and a US citizen or a permanent resident. So non-residents can participate in a tour, but they wouldn't be paid with Jazz Road funds. Eligible tours. Eligible tour routing is 3 to 6 sites on contiguous dates. Funds for artists are for artists to stay on the road and not return home. So they're not for one-offs. You can't do one in March and one in April and 1 and 2 in May, for example. So you'd want to consist of a tour. The tour must reach 3 to 6 sites and either cover a total distance of 250 miles or more, or reach at least one site that is at least 250 miles from the applicant's home base. They must occur within the designated dates for the grant cycle, take place in the US or its territories. They can be within one state, cross state lines. You can go to multiple regions. It just has to make sense in your narrative and in your budget. So if you're flying from here, from Georgia to California to New York to Florida, that wouldn't, it would be hard to make a case for that being a sustainable tour. Okay. Each venue listed on the tour, engagement can be multiple nights long as it's at least 3 separate venues. Each venue listed on the tour must demonstrate their commitment to the engagement by providing the offer letter. All presenters, regardless of size or financial contribution, are expected to make significant efforts in promotion and or create other opportunities to attract new audiences. So it wouldn't just completely and totally just be on you, contingent on you to do that. We're hoping that you will, as that as much as possible, you will be able to engage with the presenter, which is something, it's a practice that you'd want to get into anyhow, regardless of this, of the 2-week tour, or the 6-site tour rather. It's something that's definitely a best practice as well. So hopefully this will help you to do that, to engage in that marketing cooperative with the presenters. Eligible expenses, performance fees, the equitable amount the artist ensemble would normally charge for a touring engagement. Travel, hotel, lodging, meals, backline, equipment, artist support. Eligible venues, there's a list of them, but honestly, you could be as creative as you want as long as it's marketed and it's open to the public. So social scene hotspots, retail, galleries, museum, embassies, outdoor concerts, reach out to communities, to cities to and see where they might have some performance spaces that they'd be willing to allow you to use. So, and again, at the bottom of this, it says if you have an idea for a venue that's not listed, contact the regional arts organization in your area. They can most likely, they can assist you in being able to do that. So that is eligibility. Budget, the application includes a tour budget summary, which will be, which requires the applicant to total all the eligible artist fees and expenses. We do have a budget template that you can use that's already filled out with lots of categories, and it's a lot of the applicants have found it very helpful. So you can use that, or if you have a budget sheet or budget template that you're already used to using, you can submit that as well. The panel review process is 50% work samples, meaning the artistic excellence, and it's 50% of the written application, the tour integrity, the quality and clarity of the overall artist presenter planning, the diversity of organizations and venues involved, the size, the type, geographic area served. A key point about this is an equitable payment, going back to that, when it talks about budget, equitable payment is not contingent on the size of the venue when you're presenting your application. So if you want to, you have a friend with a nice house with a great backyard and he's willing to open it up for a community jazz concert featuring you, maybe there's never any jazz in this area. It's in the middle of nowhere in some place that just hasn't seen jazz. And he's willing to do that. He's willing to market. You work with him. You're trying to spread the word around town, and 30 people show up. And that's what you're expecting to show up. The town only has maybe 50 people for a 16-mile radius. You would still ask for the same equitable payment that you would if you were playing at the Blue Note, because what you need to make to be able to survive, to have equitable pay, to be able to pay your musicians and your artists to travel there, to stay, to be put up, those things don't change just because of the size of the venue. So we would want to encourage you to continue to think about and ponder over what that equitable pay would be for you, regardless of the size of the venue. Incomplete applications will not be considered. Now, we have added something different that's a little different from the last rounds that we've had, which is we put the criteria and the rubric public. So we're going to take a quick look at that. We're not going to go into it all the way, but we have the rubric here. Here's, again, the priorities. You'll see this pop up a lot. And what's important about this is it kind of just lets you know that we're not the jazz police. It sort of gives you what we define as jazz and how you can define jazz. But again, if you think that your music would be great at a Blue Note jazz concert, and then submit, apply. If you're not sure, apply. If you think that your music would be better at a gospel concert or a gospel festival and may be out of place at a Blue Note Jazz Festival, for example, then, take a look at it and think about it. But again, if you're still on the fence about it, then I would encourage you just to apply. Again, going through the process of the application, we've heard that it really has a lot of benefit on the artist's career. Now, artistic excellence. We break it down into 5 categories: basic musicianship and technique, interpretation, improvisation and soloing, time and feel, soulfulness, and musical communication. Now, this is regardless of if you're performing free jazz or your standard bebop or some trad jazz from 1920s. The goal was to make this as objective as possible so that this artistic excellence could be less subjective. And so when it comes to, for example, interpretation, is what you're trying to say clear? Whatever it is everybody on board? Is everyone clear and understood by all members? They're communicated eloquently and creatively. When it comes to improvisation, looking at the excellent box, that the soloists know how to construct personal and engaging improvisation through harmonic progressions. They reflect the knowledge of the style, whatever style that happens to be. Are they playing bop? Are they playing to where I like to say your grandmother knows what you're trying to say, regardless of what the specific jazz style that you're playing is. Time and feel, rhythm section is excellent groove. Again, the understanding of time, pulse, and feel is important regardless of if you're playing free jazz or not. Is it all understood? Is that being communicated by every member of the ensemble? And then soulfulness, musical communication, elements of musical communication are clearly uniform. Intensity and spirit is almost never lacking. And then when we go down into the second criteria, which is and again, this is online. You can look at it for yourself, take some time. We encourage you to examine it. Criterion 2, the merit of the tour readiness, the narrative, budget, and offer letters, the impact of the tour on the ensemble's professional and artistic development at this time, quality and clarity of the artist presenter planning. Was there a significant effort regarding presenting information on the venue? Is there significant effort and communication going on? Is there a plan in place that obviously, even if it hasn't been implemented yet, it's clear what that plan is and the method of implementation? The diversity of organizations and venues involved, the quality of and clarity of the plan for the tour coordination and routing. So all of these things are 10 points each. There are 10 categories equaling up 100 points. And yeah, so hopefully that's clear. Again, the goal is to take as much subjectivity out of it and give the panel an opportunity to make it as objective as possible. And the other thing is you'll see your score. You will get your score back. And so if you did not make it, and you can see where you scored in each one of these things. So for example, let's just say that here at the, let's say diversity of organizations and the venues involved, the type size, and let's say you scored a 3 here. And then you can look and say, okay, here's where we scored a 3. We want to apply again for the next cycle. We really have to focus here. Maybe you scored 10 here, 10 here. Maybe you had 6 here, and you could look at it and say, okay, what thing am I missing between this box, between being box 4 here and being box 3? We got a 6 here. So most of the presenters and venues were described. They're just the goals were fairly specific. We want to really work on making sure that it's really developed, well developed, that it's really specific for the next time, so we get up that 6. And get it up there to a 10. So hopefully it'll be really helpful in giving you the feedback you need through the numbers, that you can see the feedback that you need to be successful on your next application if this one didn't fly. All right, grant award and payment. South Arts contracts with the applicant and or their business entity on behalf of their ensemble. The applicant must provide the required documentation to show their permanent resident status or citizenship. Grant funds are taxable. So grantees must comply with all applicable city, state, and federal laws, ordinances, codes, and regulations. The grantee is solely responsible for the management of the tour and disbursement of reporting the grant income. So we shouldn't be getting any phone calls from jazz musicians band saying, hey, that guy didn't pay me. You got to pay me. So we'll forward them right back to jazz musician to receive that payment. So all grants can be submitted must be submitted online using the Salesforce system. Here's where you can visit the site to go ahead and get used to it. And then you have the application portal right here, and we're going to get into that in just a second. Actually, we can get into that right now. Kathy, are you good to get into that right now? So when you click here, it's going to take you to Salesforce to develop to create your login. You create your account, and then you can go ahead and start your application process. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Lee, who is I like to just call her the web wizard, but she's going to help us. She does our database management.
Thank you, Drew. So I'm going to walk you through some key points in our grant portal. When you click on that log into Salesforce link, you're going to be taken to the homepage of our grant portal, which everyone should be seeing at this time. And so just quick overview. You can log in if you're already registered by clicking here. This will sign you up, and there are multiple ways of signing up and logging in. You can go through the grants that are available by clicking on the Browse Grants. And once I click on there, I can actually see the Jazz Road Tours grant. I could click on that. And from here, I can start the application, which will then give me the chance to log in or sign up. But I can also go directly to sign up. Okay. I should be able to go directly to sign up. There we go. So what is important for you as applicants for either the Jazz Road Tours or Jazz Road Creative Residencies is to make sure that you select that you're applying as an individual. These two grant categories are available to individual artists, even if you're doing an ensemble. You still want to register as an individual because you will not see these grants listed when you log in as available if you've signed up as an organization. So you would fill out all of this information, you would click sign up, if you don't see, once you click sign up, you should receive an email that will give you a link to complete the registration process and set up a password. Give this a few minutes. Don't just come back and say, oh, that hasn't come in, and sign up again and try and sign up again. There's things happening in the background that it's making sure that it's connecting if there's existing records and whatever in our system. So just give it a few minutes and then come back. It says up to 10 seconds. You should receive the green pop-up confirmation message. So look for that. It does not stay on your screen. So if you look away, you may miss it. So there's two things that'll happen when you hit sign up. You're going to see a green pop-up confirmation message and you'll receive an email that has the link for completing that process and setting your password. And then once you've done that, you'll be logged in. If you give me a second here and let me log in. So once I'm logged in, again, I'm seeing this home page, but I'm seeing a few things up here that are a little bit different. My funding requests is where you go once you've started an application and you want to come back to it. If I go to funding programs, or the browse grants button will bring you here. And now you see, I only have the Jazz Road Tours because I've logged in as an individual using my individual account for my grants for South Arts. And when I click on that, I can start the application. And this is just telling me that how to view the progress and close the window, click on my funding request if you already have an application in progress. But I'm going to go ahead and start a new application so that you get to see the look and feel. So this is our application. A couple of things before I show some key things in the application that I want to mention is I highly recommend, and I know Drew does too, that you create your narratives in some kind of word processing software, save that, and then copy and paste those long narrative answers and responses into those fields. I do that with recommend that with any grant system. It's technology. You never know when something might fail, power outage or whatever, and you haven't saved that, and then you lose all of that text that you've then worked on and created. So just be sure that, like I said, I recommend that you do work outside of the system with those narratives and then copy and paste them. And then the next thing that I always recommend whenever working on any kind of system, Word or Word documents, text fields or whatever, is always to save often. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's a save and a next. So you'll go through, you'll respond, fill out that, and then you can click save, and that will then trigger everything to save on the back end for us. And it'll be here when you come back in. So that's another key thing that I want to share with you is you can log out at any time and come back in to fill out your application. You'll just want to come to my funding requests. And here you'll see on mine, I have a fairly extensive list of ones that I've used to test. You'll pick the one, hopefully you'll just have the one for now that you're testing. And again, I also want to iterate here that if this does not show up instantaneous like I do, give it a few seconds before you go back out. We have noticed a trend that some people have started multiple applications, and maybe it's because they don't understand they can come back in, or maybe this hasn't loaded in the timely manner. So give it a few seconds before you go back out and try and start a new application. So just a few things to go over. Just wanted to let you know here is the uploads. Just like most systems, you click to add a file, and I'll just grab one and put it up there. Once I've done this, there's a key field here that's going to pre-populate after you click the save below. So I'm going to click save. And again, when you click save, you'll also should receive this pop-up. This is your progress has been saved. If you do not see this and you don't have the option to click OK, it probably hasn't saved it. And try again. And if you have technical difficulties, you can contact Drew, and he will get with me and let me know, and we'll look at that. So you can see it's saved. This button is now saying yes. And I can also go up here to my menu bars, the tabs up here. I can click on the uploaded files. And, oh, wait a minute, I need to do a refresh. Okay. There's a technical difficulty that I'm going to have to look into because it's not showing up there. If that happens to you, call us and let us know and we'll check into it. The last thing that I wanted to go over, also in the venues, next to last thing. So there is you can create multiple instances of the venues. I'm gonna scroll. Let me just go. Oh, it's already done that. Oh, that's right. I'm working on an application I already worked on. There should be, if you are new, you should have an add button to the add an item. You would have one instance or 3 instances of this because 3 are required. So this is the 3 required instances that you're seeing here. If you have more than 3 instances, you want to click on the add item, and this will add another set of questions for your venues. Only add up to what you need because these fields are required for each instance that you create, and you aren't able to delete them. And then you're going to have to put in blank or put in non-applicable data to submit your application. So finally, on the certification and submit, you'll go through. There's a question here. You can tell us anything. Let us, certify all of your information. When you click submit, which will not happen at this time because I am missing a lot of information. But when you click submit, two things should happen that I want you to be aware of. You should receive a pop-up, just like I received a pop-up for when I saved, that my progress had been saved. You should receive a submit pop-up message. And then the final thing that you will know when you give it a few seconds, if I go up to back out to my funding request list, my status out here is going to change to submitted. So if for some reason you're ready to submit and you submit and it's not doing that, you didn't get the pop-up and or you don't see submit, go back into your application, go over everything and just make sure that there's nothing missing that's required, and then try to submit again. And if that still happens, then again, contact us and we'll look into it and see what we can do to help you get that submitted. So Drew, with that, I'm going to hand that back over to you.
All right. Also apologize. I've been, if you haven't been checking out the Q&A window, I've been answering them, trying to diligently go through some of those to kind of minimize the live Q&A at the end. So, all right, going back into, some people are asking some questions, and so I want to make sure that we kind of get to some of those questions, but I want to see if some of those questions are already answered in our resources and frequently asked questions section. All right, so for the resources and frequently asked questions, what's the difference between a presenter and a venue? Presenters are the organizations that present, or the hosts, or host artists for engagements in communities, and venues are the location where it's taking place. They can be the same thing. They can be used interchangeably, but sometimes the presenter is a venue. So if you're presenting at the Village Vanguard is the venue. This really becomes a thing if you're presenting at a festival, or you're presenting, somebody's putting on a show for you. Say you're renting out something, and there's a promotional company that books artists that's using a theater at a different venue. So then that would be when you'd want to make sure you identify those. All right, what is an offer letter? So an offer letter is a sheet that gathers a presenter's information, business details, scope of the engagement, artist fee, lodging, food, event, venue information, backline, etc. All these details. It's really important to get all of these details when you're negotiating with the presenter or venue to perform there. I don't know if you could tell by my background, but it's not a virtual background. I'm currently in my basement studio, and I've toured, and I can't tell you how many times I play a vibraphone that I've been told, like, oh yeah, we have the vibraphone, and I come in and it's literally, it's a xylophone, or it's like falling apart, and or they just didn't have it at all. It just said, oh, it got lost in translation. We didn't know we needed it. Or they just told me. So it's really important. And I know a lot of drummers who go through this same thing as well, where they're told they're going to get one kind of drum set, maybe, and it doesn't show up, or it's not there, and they're left scrambling. So it's really important to know what kind of backline, also to know if, and for your budget justification, we want to know what the presenters are offering. Now, what the presenter is offering in terms of equitable pay doesn't have anything to do with the budget that you're asking for. So if it's going to be $1,500 for you're asking to play at venue X, and venue X is willing to offer $500, you're not submitting for $1,000. You're still submitting for the $1,500, and anything you make from venue X is on top of the money that you're getting. So you are allowed to receive. Funds from the venue in addition to your Jazz Road tour. We want our artists to be able to make a sustainable income. So are all these details need to be included in the offer letter? Yes. And we got into a little bit of specifics here. Compensation, housing, meals, travel, and backline have to be included. Even if the presenter, even if the answer to those things is they're providing none of it, it has to be included in the offer letter. I'm well aware that many venues don't operate in offer letters. Usually it's sort of, usually mostly it'll be larger festivals, or it just depends. So that's why we've provided the offer letter template. You can fill out that template with the pertinent information, perhaps that you've gotten in an email or whatnot, and then you can input that and then submit that offer letter. So where can we find information on venues we haven't played before? There's several tools available in the resource section below. And you could also reach out to your regional arts organization in the area in which you're trying to tour, and they'll have a more developed list of venues in those locales that you're trying to get into. And also consider the fact that as nonprofit organizations, we also have working relationships with different city governments, presenters, and things where we might be able to maybe put you in contact with the local marketing cooperative of that city. For example, in Delray Beach, Florida, there's a marketing cooperative. There's a Delray Beach marketing cooperative that puts on all the events in the city that also allows for different outdoor performances. And so a lot of cities have things like that. And if you call your regional arts organization or reach out to them and tell them that you're applying for the Jazz Road grant and you just need some information, and the more specific you can be, the better. Listen, I'm trying to get through Omaha, Nebraska, and I really want to perform in Omaha, and what venues do you know about? And then they can help you to be able to identify some of those. How do diversity, equity, and inclusion affect the proposal review? Jazz Road provides new artist-driven tours of jazz to reach new audiences. There's no specific expectations for each individual application, but the program overall is looking to fund activities which include artists rooted in jazz as an African-American experience and communal music based on the relationship between artists, elders, and their communities. So as you're looking at venues and you're looking at places and you're looking at tour routing, keep this in mind and see if there's some aspect of this that you can develop within that show that lends itself, that builds upon some of those key core fundamental values. Artists and presenters representing the full spectrum of gender identity, age, race, ethnicity, location, disability, with an emphasis on supporting more women in jazz. Artists and presenters in small, rural, and isolated communities. Overall, Jazz Road aims to fund tours that reach audiences and communities in all 6 regions and territories. So tours which reach listeners of diverse age, diverse gender identity, and race. So these aren't mandatory things, but they are things that will make, the more you can just key in on that and see and be as thoughtful as you can about where the tour is going, how it can reach more diverse audiences, how we can spread jazz and build the field of jazz by fostering more inclusion, more inclusivity, different age ranges, different things like that. Now, we don't fund educational things per se, but if there's performances where the key audience would be children, or young people, as long as it's still open to the public, it would be acceptable. So maybe something at a library, where there might be more youth that are inclined to go and experience this jazz. Our choreographers, dancers working collaboratively with established jazz artists on a specific tour eligible. The intent is to support jazz bands, so music. So dance is definitely in line with the history of jazz. It just shouldn't be the focus of it. An exception that we brought out here would be tap dance, which has strong roots within jazz. Specifically, came up in the jazz age. They were kind of part and parcel, and it also has a sonic element. So tap dancers are contributing sonically to the music. So tap dance would be the exception of that. So, but if a jazz ensemble is the primary artistic statement of the performance, then there's room for that eligibility. If there's a dancer involved, and then feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss it. What do we mean by tour integrity? It's a challenge, so we want to make sure that the tour you put together will get you successfully down the road. Our gospel music tour is eligible for funding. Gospel is often a facet of jazz. It often features jazz harmonies, but certain jazz artists are most definitely influenced by gospel, classify themselves within that genre. But gospel music tours are really separate and distinct from jazz tours, and they don't primarily feature jazz as an art form or prioritize and building new jazz audiences. So again, if you think your work will be better suited on a gospel jazz tour as opposed to like a Blue Note jazz cruise, for example, then it might not be the grant for you. However, can't hurt to apply. The guidelines state that Jazz Road isn't trying to define jazz. So it's a fusion group like hip hop jazz, funk jazz, rock jazz group qualified. Yeah, sure. Yeah. We recognize excellence in that full aesthetic range. And we have awareness of current trends. So these things are eligible. How do you come up with the amount for the grant request? It should cover all of your expenses and compensation that you would need to complete your tour. Because we understand that this planning is crucial for a successful tour. We provided some tour budget templates that you can use. So right here, there's some tour budget templates. You guys can take a look at those. Now, another thing that's offered here is $2,500 that are optional for the artists to have administrative tour coordination or promotion work. So what that means is that out of the $15,000, 2,500 of that, as long as it doesn't go over 15,000, can go toward non-musical touring support or administrative. So a videographer, for example, a photographer, social media person, marketing person, a tour director, a tour, someone who can come out, tour manager, someone who can come out and advance each show, that would cover that. So it still can't go over 15,000. So you can't do 15,000 plus have that tour administration. But that 2,500 in your budget recommendation can go toward non-musical personnel to support your tour. Can the optional admin money go to cover the grant writer's fee? No. The goal is to simplify the application enough so you don't have to hire a grant writer. Also, along that term, if you're not the best writer, as long as the ideas are there and the feeling is there and your intent is there. I mean, listen, I've made a bunch of grammatical mistakes. I've noticed like 2 on these FAQs that I need to go back and check. And I also made a few on the presentation. Hopefully you got the idea though. So then that's the goal. So don't be overly concerned if, it's not super prim and super polished. As long as you put in the effort and the ideas and the intent are there, it's going to be the content that is being adjudicated. It's not a grammar test. It's not a spelling bee. So don't be too stressed out about that. What is the new ensemble, new configuration? You don't have work samples yet. It really is. The artist should provide audio samples that mostly resemble the touring entity, including personnel, instrumentation, and music. So you'd want to focus on the work of highest quality. If there's no touring examples that exist to represent it, it might not be. We'll consider the work samples that are given, but you want to make sure that work sample is representative of what you're going to be touring with. Can previously funded artists apply in the future? Yes, they are eligible to apply. So again, if you toured, your last date of your last tour that you were awarded was October 15th, 2022, you would be eligible to apply in 2023 as long as that grant closed after the date of your last tour, which, so if it closed October 27th, then you'd be eligible to apply for that one. Hopefully that clears that up. Also, you can apply for a touring grant and a creative residency grant at the same time. And you can win both because they're 2 separate panels. So creative residency panel won't know about your status with tours. So it is possible that if you put together 2 great proposals that you could win both. If it wasn't funded in the first round, can it be saved and resubmitted? You can apply again. You just have to resubmit your application. But if it wasn't funded, it would benefit you to take a look at the score that you got on that first one, look at that feedback, and make the needed adjustments to your application. And again, just like Kathy was saying, this is one of the reasons why it's really important to put this information down in a Word document, not only just in case there's some technological malfunction, but also there's a lot of grants out there. And a lot of this information that you write can be modified and edited to submit to other organizations, other grants, based on what those grant guidelines and those grant values are. So it's just always great to have this document with all of these questions and all of these things that you can sort of keep adding to, so that as you apply for things in the future, you have this resource that you can go back to instead of starting from scratch. If you receive the grant, how is it paid? It's payable to the artist or individual. 75% will be upfront, and then will be paid within 6 weeks of your first tour date, and the final 25% will be paid upon the receipt of your final report. And the final report will also include documentation in terms of video and collateral that we can see that these shows and these dates happen, and also we can use for any future marketing or things like that. And so here's some resources. We encourage you to look through them. There's performing arts and performing arts charities, nonprofits, there's jazz societies, there's alternative venue sources, grant writing resources. So we encourage you to look through that. And again, if you're looking for different venues and different, more specific locales, we encourage you to check out your local regional arts organization. So that's Jazz Road Tours, and that's open now. With the time that we have, I definitely want to get into Jazz Road creative residencies. So here we're back on jazzroad.org and or South Arts, and how you saw led over there. The creative residencies, you apply for up from $5,000 to $40,000. This is different from Jazz Road Tours. For those who might just be joining, Jazz Road Tours is up to $15,000 that is specifically for you to tour throughout the United States, or 3 to 6 sites throughout the United States. This one is a creative residency. So a residency, we can define it as a project, essentially. If you want to look at it as a project, something that would take you between 1 and 4 weeks to really delve deep, and this money to be, the money would be able to provide you with the resources that you need to really delve deep and to create something meaningful for the jazz field, for yourself, for the community at large. And that would be what this is for. So there are, again, previous jazz residency recipients. Definitely want to go and check that out, see some of the programs that got funded. This is opening on February 8th. It's a little bit longer cycle due to the fact that it's a more involved application. And the creative residencies is one component of the larger program, Jazz Road. And the creative residencies is February 8th through March now in 2023. The next one is until 2025. So, and then you have that year in between essentially to get that project done. The purpose is to remove financial barriers that keep jazz artists from investing deeply in their creative practice, tending to their artistic. Sorry. All right. To provide, my computer went all sorts of bonkers on me. All right, here we go. To professional jazz artists from investing deeply in their creative practice, attending to their artistic and professional growth, and experimenting across a wide range of artistic and community engagement possibilities throughout the US. So it's an artist-centric program that responds to what artists have called for while promoting flexibility for how residency can be defined. Basically, in order to create something new, a new project, something that is meaningful, you need the time to do it, you need the space to do it, and you need the funds to do it. So we want to provide financial support for jazz artists across the UF in the self-defined residency activities that advance their artistry, creative exploration, and community engagement and life work in jazz. So within that very phrase, you can see some of the program goals and things that you'd want to really key in on. And it's to advance your artistry, right? It's creative exploration. So it's something that's not just, I'm going to make a CD of stuff that I've made before. This is part 3 of my vibraphone bebop CD collection. It's something different that encourages creative exploration. Perhaps it's melding styles. Perhaps it's really engaging in the community. Maybe you live in an area where the indigenous community is really rich, and you want to add some of that those sonic sounds. Maybe you want to experiment with new instruments within the ensemble to still have that improvisatory element. Maybe you have an Indian background and you want to engage with more of that sonic Indian element to cross over with jazz and create new things. Something of that nature. Maybe you want to engage more with nature, actually, and things like that. And community engagement. How is this project engaging with the community, and how does this really demonstrate your life work in jazz? So it's $5,000 to $40,000. It's February 2nd. I'm sorry, February 8th it opens. Deadline is April 8th. Notification is June 15th, and the grant period is July, basically a year, from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th. And so here are some of the guidelines. Eligibility is very similar in terms of professional jazz artists working solo or with the composer-led collective. A professional jazz artist is able to show a noteworthy record of work experience and accomplishments, a US citizen, or a permanent resident. Yeah, so we have that creative residence eligibility, the components, the 1 to 4 weeks in duration. It can be either contiguous or non-contiguous, so they don't have to be like 4 straight weeks. It could be spaced out over the course of that year. That's why we give that much time. It may be located anywhere in the US. They're meant to provide an opportunity that the applicant believes is a departure from their prior artistic practice norms, as well as produce an outcome believed significantly to enhance their career. So again, just producing an album with your quartet, your 5th album with your quartet would not be would not meet that criteria. Now, having an album that you need to produce that shows that that's the end game of the product and of the work, creating something to encapsulate that work. Maybe you're trying to create a new collective of women, female composers into a new standards. So some jazz music, and you'd want to record that, so you'd have that recording of that music so that it could be listened to by people who choose to play that music, something of that nature. I'm coming up with stuff off the top of my head. Those types of things would be the recording as a byproduct of the residency is different than the recording being the residency. Original ideas, they don't require partner organizations to be eligible for support. Again, these are individual artist grants. Eligible residencies can address any of these three areas: creative emphasis, develop, produce, record, or perform existing and or new work; community engagement emphasis, connect artistic vision and practice and or new work with opportunities for community immersion; and both creative and community engagement emphasis and combinations of the above. And then kind of go into this. I really do want to get to some questions. The residency parameters are here. It really is pretty in depth. They can include video and sound recording, documentation, and virtual programming. It will always include some scale of creative development, be it writing work or revisiting music. Don't require partner organizations. The residencies may include academic settings such as music schools, universities, colleges, so long as the applicant's creative endeavor is the primary element of the project and independent of teaching formal curriculum as appointed faculty. So it can't just be to support your classes that you're teaching at Kennesaw State University, for example. Residencies may include conventional and or alternative nonprofit or commercial entities. Though the application must be submitted by the lead artist, the residency concept may be originally conceived and equally driven by a partner organization. All right, here's some examples, great, which you guys can look into. So feel free to take a look at those examples. There's eligible expenses, review criteria. Review criteria will be, again, artistic excellence, project narrative, the residency outcomes, and the capacity. So demonstrates the management capacity to be able to complete the residency, including ample direction and logistical coordination. So just to show that you could actually pull off what you say you're going to pull off. So there's a lot of really great information. I don't have the rubric up yet for this, but that will be posted, so you can take a look at that. And again, the priority is so important: diversity, equity, inclusion, a primary lens for all Jazz Road program deliberations and considerations. In addition, to the evaluation criteria listed above, South Art seeks creative residencies applications in a final pool of grantees that are representative of the jazz field in terms of race, ethnicity, gender, and geographic location. The program also strives to award artists and residency projects in each of the 6 U.S. regions. So the demographic stuff that we do ask for is for South Arts use only: birth year, gender, race, U.S. Citizen or residency status. Grant award and payment is similar: 75%, no sooner than 45 days before the project begins, and 25% upon your final report. Submission and deadlines. And again, we spoke about that. Those dates are located up above. So here's, again, applicant artist information, artistic collaborators, if applicable, primary partner organizations, biographies, link to the artist website, residency summary, signed letter of intent, agreement if applicable, if you have a partner, residency project budget, 3 video and or audio links that best represent the applicant's music. So that would be the best represents the applicant's music and artistic excellence. Now, that would show that the thing that you want to do creatively, that would be a departure from that, most likely could be pulled off by you. So obviously, if you haven't created the project yet, then you wouldn't have that specific project, but you'd want to show that you have the capacity to be able to do it. Okay. Yeah, I think we have a few more minutes left, so I'll try to get through as many questions as I can. This is always the most nerve-wracking part for me because, but I love it. It's exciting. It's like I'm performing right now. I'm improvising. Hopefully, I have my language down so we can get into some of these questions. So Ivan, if you don't mind, maybe is it easier if you do this or if I go ahead and just kind of look through them and sort of just go down
Either
to
way,
the-
whichever is easier for you. If you want, I can start at the top and work my way down, or if you want to read through them on your own, that works as well.
Sure. I guess I could take a look through. I see them pretty clearly here. I did answer a few of them. All right, let's see. Okay. Question about areas underserved versus venues for the underserved. So what we're specifically looking for in this is areas that are underserved with this music, so they don't get jazz music. So venues that are for the underserved communities could be venues for all sorts of underserved communities. So I would say areas underserved, or that venue is underserved by jazz music, so there's no jazz that comes through that venue or anything like that. But a venue that serves the underserved is always nice as well. Ratio of traditional to untraditional venues, if the total is 3, for example, I mean, whatever you can do, I would say, again, we're looking to help you with your career, but also looking to serve the program priorities. So if you can do one at Blue Note and one at Aunt Mary's Crab Shack in the middle of No Jazz America, and then another one at Blues Alley, it's still pretty good. It still shows that thoughtfulness. Yeah. Regarding the venue questionnaire, why is the question below repeated for each venue? Could be responded to general for all. Payment that you provided the amount that you would consider equitable amount to be paid in full for this engagement based on the eligible expenses described in our guidelines. To understand the state of the field, please provide any explanation about how you determined this number. The response will not be used, but as part of the determination. I'm not sure I quite answered that question. I quite understand your question clearly, Zulima. Ivan, do you get what they're trying to ask?
Yeah, so the question is related to what is equitable pay at one venue versus another venue. And the way that we've gone about it in the past is that we recognize that certain venues have capacity to pay more than others. So for example, if you're playing a 3,000 seat venue, they might have a much higher ability to pay you something that is equitable than maybe a 40 seat venue.
Right. Yeah, sure. That makes a lot of sense. So what you'd put in the slot for a 3,000 person venue would be naturally higher than what you'd put in the slot for a 40 person venue, but it doesn't necessarily have to be so if that's how you feel. So a lot of this just comes down to how you feel and how you structure your budget and how you feel that you need to convey that budget in order to make a justifiable case for your tour, for your application. Also, yeah, I guess that helps. Nice question. Evidence of capacity of venue that cannot make a guarantee but will publicize highly. Yes. Is that, Ivan? Again, are you asking if that's okay or if that's what that means? Not quite sure, but a venue that can't make a guarantee what we'll publicize and will commit is a viable venue. I think, it's a viable venue.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not entirely sure what the question is going for, but again, each venue does have its own different capacity, whether it's the ability to pay, whether it's the ability to promote, whether it's the ability to provide in-kind services such as hoteling or transportation. And every venue will have its own capacity. And we're just trying to do a better job of understanding the field that is out there and the field in which you all are working. Great.
Thank you, Ivan. Can an artist receive, I think we did sort of answer this one, can an artist receive a Jazz Road Tour grant, be eligible to receive it in subsequent rounds? It has to be a year past. The round you're applying for has to be a year out from the last show you played and the last one you did. So are 2 performances on 2 consecutive weekends considered 4 contiguous days? No, they're not. Too many days in between. Can the area for creative residency be defined as a state or region? Must be fully conducted in one city? Nope, does not have to be fully conducted in one city. I'm trying to submit a grant on the website, but the site is not working properly. Are you having website issues? Created my account, can't navigate. Once in the system, issues resolved. All right, great. Glad we got there. Will the same panel? No, they will not. It'll be a different panel between Jazz Rose and Creative Residency Awards. Ivan, what region is Puerto Rico in? Is that South Arts?
No, Puerto Rico is not within South Arts. It was just assigned to a regional very recently. I need to actually check my little cheat sheet here. Apologies for that. The
I believe
Mid-Atlantic
it's
Arts
yeah.
Alliance.
Mid-Atlantic. Okay, great. So Mid-Atlantic. Is it okay to apply for both tour sectors? I don't, tour sectors?
I believe that's tour cycles. So can somebody apply
Oh.
to one cycle, the one that's currently open, and then apply to the next one that is coming up?
Yes, but grants, I would wait until your grant would immediately get pushed back if you got awarded it on the 15th. So if you were awarded one, you would automatically disqualify you from the second one. So if you really want to do the one on the now, then I would do that. But if you already have one in right now and you're waiting to see if you got the grant and you want to go ahead and apply, just know that if you get that one on the 15th will hold. You won't be able to choose between them. What's the next step after this? I have a 5-piece jazz band and really want to tour and reach places I can't get to on my own. Look for places, reach out to your regionals, start digging. Yeah, but I'm sure most of those questions, Jamil, are going to be found on the website. So check out the website, and if you still have questions after checking out all those guidelines, the frequently asked questions, but your questions need a little bit general. So I think once you dig in, I think you might find some of the answers you're looking for. If not, shoot me an email. Non-traditional venues or venues that don't have jazz. Yeah, that's non-traditional. A house, someone's backyard, a garden, a library, law firm. Travel with a large ensemble. For example, Northern California, Southern California play community venue. Yeah. I mean, if you're not stopping anywhere with a large ensemble from Northern California to Southern California, you just have to have the budget justification for it. It doesn't really look like a tour with logical routing. Usually, have not driven north to south, but I think but I'm from South Florida, so I know that going from South Florida to New Orleans or South Florida to Tennessee, for example, you usually want to stop, and that's like a 14-hour trip. So we definitely want to stop in between there and find a gig. Otherwise, we'd have to stop and put everybody up in a hotel, and that won't make for a very logical tour routing. Second question is, seemed helpful to fund a concert entirely from the grant. House concert, non-traditional venue would not place. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that, Daniel, about the house concert, non-traditional. I don't quite understand the question, but second is the question. It seems like it would be helpful to fund a concert like this entirely from the grant. Yeah, I agree. Does the tour have to be within a period of a week or two? Can the concert spread out over several weeks? No, they have to be contiguous. So they have to be 3 to 6 sites, with the exception of a travel day here or there and or like a slow night of a Monday or Tuesday. It's expected that the tour days be contiguous. It's 3 to 6 sites. Can you divide the tour intake? No, you can't do Demas. It has to be contiguous. You can't divide the tour into 2 contiguous weekends. Book tours before, and I've never received an offer letter. Email confirmation acceptable. I do think I answered that one. I thought I did. Via, I thought I responded to that one, but you can use I did respond to it in the presentation, though. I think you can use the offer letter template that we have and input the information that's on there. And in the frequently asked questions, it definitely goes deeper into that. Can artists pay themselves with some of the funding for this grant? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's heavy. That's a heavy priority. Should it be assumed that the artist will be able to execute the proposed tour, whether or not they receive the grant, or would venues likely be willing to cancel the tour with reasonable notice if the grant is unsuccessful? I think it is a great opportunity. I would rephrase that. Many artists who have not received the grant have told me that they've done the tours anyway and renegotiated with those venues since they had that relationship. But if you don't get the grant, that's going to be between you and the venue. as older artists nearing the end of their careers considered as fully as younger, less experienced artists? Yeah, absolutely. As long as the artistic excellence is there and the tour readiness is there. Ryan asked if the artist-led corporation open to a 4-person jazz ensemble if they're a corporation. Yes, you'd have to choose one musician to apply thrown as band leader, even if you perform as a group. You know, the hot red jazz sardines would still have to have one person who applied, and that person would get the monies. In regards to criteria number 1 and bands, can solo artists apply? Yes, they can. Work samples be live performances or studio recordings preferred. We definitely would need video. Can applicants submit multiple, Carolyn, can applicants submit multiple applications if they have a few different ideas? Yes. As long as if you have all that work sample and it's all very clear and there's enough work samples to justify it. Is there a criterion to which a panel would determine if equitable pay is defined by the artist is indeed equitable? I found through going through these applications before submitting that oftentimes the pay that artists, many artists put down is arbitrary and not based on any data. One of the reasons this budget is so important is you see not only what it's costing you to tour, what it's costing you to go on tour, but it also shows you what you'd be giving up. Like, are you teaching a full range of lessons at home where you'd make, you know, $1,000 for that week teaching lessons? And when you look at the 4 sites you're going to, you're only making $1,200. So that doesn't really make sense. When you look at the hours that you're putting into being a band leader, the hours that you're putting into arranging the music, to being the guy, you know, doing the rehearsal, organizing all the logistics, if you clock those hours and you give yourself an hourly rate that you would be making somewhere else, are you really getting an equitable fee? So it's not just a matter of being as subjective as like, well, I'd love to make $2,000 on this gig, or I'd love to make $5,000. It's, and it can be a little bit of that, obviously, but it's looking at like, what would your hourly rate be for the work that you're really doing? How much time you're really putting in to this work, to putting together the tour, to booking the tour, to doing the offer letters. And then how much rehearsal time is there? If you were going to pay for rehearsal time, how much would these artists need to be paid for rehearsal time? You know, the things like this that are actually really tangible, real costs that need to be considered. So it's not just a matter of like, well, my equitable artist fee is $500. Well, why? I don't know. So what I get paid, you know? So just kind of take a look at that and look at the data and look at how much time you're really putting into this. It's I can't emphasize that enough, regardless of the grant, getting the grant or not. Middle-aged white males, my application at a disadvantage? Nope, it's not. Not a disadvantage if you can blow, man, if you're killing, and if your tour readiness looks like it, you want to bring jazz into communities that are underserved. Diversity is diversity. Does the tour have to be within a period of a week or 2? I did answer that one already. I think I'm going back and forth. Sorry. Rubric, artist excellence. Do you prefer live video footage over recorded music? Yes, you will have to submit videos and audio, or audio, but video is definitely going to be preferred. Can you define the limit of mid-career? So no, because you could be a top-tier sideman working with Wynton Marsalis at Lincoln Center, but now you're ready to do your own project. Where are you in your career? Don't get too hung up on the emerging or mid-career. Just apply. You will be able to see your score. Well, the grant scoring rubric starts with just this last grant cycle in October. So if you applied in this grant cycle and you're awaiting the announcement, you will see your score from that application. We don't have, it was a different rubric from before, different panels. So starting, is someone unmute? Kathy? No, okay. Starting from the grant cycle in October, all applicants will see their score. Do they? Yep, they do receive, absolutely, Daniel. Applicants do receive feedback and actual grades based on that rubric, so that you can make adjustments and apply again. Because that's what we want. We want you to be as successful as possible. Regarding work samples, are we submitting only originals? Can we also submit rearranged jazz standards? Yeah, all of it. Can the residency already be in place before the grant is awarded? I mean, that's, I need more specifics on that. Go ahead and shoot an email to me, dtucker@southarts.org. Because I'm not quite sure what you're asking. If I'm doing workshops in conjunction with my tour, do I need to provide any documentation for that? No, we don't fund workshops. So South Arts does not fund Jazz Road does not fund workshops specifically, but they do look great on the application as marketing, as community engagement, etc. I think I signed up as an organization weeks ago, so I don't see Jazz Road grants as an option. If you did not select individual when you signed up on Salesforce, then you will not see Jazz Road as an option. So just go ahead and reach out. And we'll try to make that change. Kathy, is that something that they can change on the back end once they've set it up, or what is the only recourse to reach out to us and us to do it on the back end?
Yeah, that's the recourse, to reach out to us, and we'll fix it on the back end.
Okay, so if you're not seeing Jazz Road on there, chances are you did not sign up as an individual, and so you just need to reach out, send me an email, and we'll get that taken care of. If I'm the artist admin, may I create an individual account for me? Yes. When it comes to planning the tour, our offer letters, all that's required for the application, or contracts and commitments, offer letters are fine. I mean, especially since we're asking venues to give a soft commit to a tour that may or may not be funded by the grant. So the offer letter is fine. We don't need hard and fast contracts. Is there a field provision for a situation where the person is preparing, submitting the application is someone other than the artist? Yes, there's not a provision for it. You still submit on behalf of the artist. So it's best to do that in conjunction with the artist so that it makes a more honest and authentic application. Agents who submit on behalf of multiple artists is fine, but if the artist doesn't have a hand in it, it starts to become kind of generic and they tend to be less competitive. What if some of your band members vary? They can't vary on the tour. So whatever work samples you do and the budget you submit. Now, if you have a quartet, drums, piano, bass, saxophone, and your bass player can't make one of the hits and you have to use a different bass player, the budget would still stay the same. So that would be fine. And so will the sonic capacity for it. But if your trio can't make it and decided to go with a guitar trio instead, that wouldn't be kosher. May I submit a signed contract? That's fine. Signed contracts work. Anything that shows that you have the necessary information, you understand that the gig is happening. The demographic information exists in a few different places, both so that we can understand the field and so that you can understand who you're marketing to. So there's quite a few places where demographics are asked for in the application. Some of it is just so you know so if you're used to playing in an area like let's say Williamsburg, and it's like a young hip crowd, you market a certain way. But let's say your tour is taking you through Boca Raton, Florida, or Boynton Beach, Florida, where the average age is 105. They're going to come out to your show slowly. They'll get there, but your marketing is going to have to change. So those are some of the things that we want you to consider. So the more you know about the venues, the better off that will be. I'm just kidding. Maybe the 105-year-olds are fast. I don't know. Presenter, interchangeable promoter. Yeah, presenter, venue, promoter. Same idea. Whoever's putting on the show. Does the grant require that each venue has agreed to the terms of the offer letter? Do the performances have to be confirmed prior to application submission? Yes. Can we please receive the criteria points assigned to our previous jazz only if you submitted this past one? I think we're about out of time. We're actually past time at this point. So what I encourage you to do, sorry, I tried to get to as many questions as I could. I'm just going to run through it, see if there's something that I haven't touched on yet at all. This question, do the non-musical personnel have to be U.S. citizens? They cannot be. Non-U.S. citizens or non-personal residents cannot be paid with Jazz Road funds. Is the ability to look at your scores from your application a new thing? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You will not be able to get someone asked if their tour involved air travel is cheapest if booked far in advance. Would they be able to get partial payment soon after the grant award is announced? No, you get everyone gets it at the same time in relation to their tour. Yes, you can send multiple residency applications with unique ideas. They are for musicians. Evan Clayberg, do me a favor and shoot me an email with this question. It's a little bit more specific and deeper, so we can have a conversation about that. We'll set up a meeting maybe. This question is, are tours creative residencies for musicians only? The group is producing a documentary, audio recordings, and community engagement in partnership with jazz bands. So actually, I'll answer a little bit of that now. A lot of it just depends on how you phrase the residency itself. So, but we can have a deeper conversation about that. How to predict airline costs? You do the best you can. That's like budgeting anything in the future. And then I would budget up a little bit just to budget high. Yeah, Roland said it. Budget high for that. So yeah, I think yeah, that's all we really have time for. Some of these questions are answered in the FAQs, so make sure you guys check those out. Yeah. Well, someone said here that makes it impossible. Then I guess the program is primarily for New York City musicians. I'm not sure what makes it impossible, but this program is definitely not just for New York City based musicians. I'm not quite sure, David, but if you want to reach out, then we can talk about that. And if you look at some of the, by the way, if you guys look at some of the, if you go in and look at some of the past tours that have happened, you can definitely see that there were some creative ideas. Like it's almost like a cheat sheet of areas where there's places that are already willing to be opened for this program. So sorry I did not get to everybody, but I hope that we found this informative. There is a survey that Ivan, how are we handling that? Is that in the chat or?
Check your inboxes after this presentation. They'll be coming in a follow-up email tomorrow. And we encourage everybody to fill it out. It will definitely help us. And in the meantime, I'm trying to vamp so I can also pull it up and drop it in the chat box. But your feedback is hugely helpful to us as we refine our programming.
Yeah, please fill out the application. I know that you get surveys a lot from AT&T after a phone call or whatnot, and you always wonder how it's going to be used. But you're looking at the team that's using that feedback to create more opportunities, to create better webinars, more informative, to create more programs that can help you guys serve the field. So, you know, we're just trying to make it better for all of us as artists and musicians and this community. So thank you guys very much. I think we peaked out at like a couple hundred people on this webinar. So thank you guys very much for coming, for engaging. Please feel free to reach out to me, dtucker@southarts.org. And then I'll have a link down there when I reply back to you that you can set up some time for meetings if we have more questions. But yeah, and I apologize. We get a lot of phone calls with questions. So if I can't get back to you, email is going to be the best way. So please email dtucker@southarts.org. And I will also be, I don't know if any of you guys will be at Ground Up Festival in Miami. I will be at Ground Up Festival in Miami presenting about Jazz Road, answering questions. Pull out your laptop. We can go through some of the application questions and kind of just talk it through and hopefully be able to get some FaceTime on that as well. So I'll be there this weekend in Miami. And yeah, that's it. I got nothing. All the best in your application process.
Thank you, everybody.